So, welcome everyone to my AP research presentation on innovation strategies and competition in the seventh generation of English consoles. My name is Felipe Montañez and I'm a part of the AP research class at Gimnasio Campestre. So, let's begin. So, a little bit of context about the seventh generation of video games, video game consoles, and the industry as a whole. So the industry at this point and for the past few generations has been conformed by three main powers: Nintendo, with its various consoles, Sony with the PlayStation, and Microsoft with the Xbox. To understand how the seventh generation began and the things that generated the things that generated the decisions the three companies made, we have to go back and take a look at the sixth generation of video game consoles. Let's first begin with Nintendo. So Nintendo started this generation with the Nintendo GameCube over here. So this console, although pretty powerful and with a good selection of exclusive first-party Nintendo titles, did not fare too well against its competition, which in this case was the PS2 and the original Xbox. At that point, was just normally called the Xbox. So, why did Nintendo fail this generation? A very important part of this generation was the war for power, for graphics, for specs. Both Nintendo, PlayStation, and also Microsoft with the Xbox were fighting to see which console had the better graphics and the most power, and the consumers were drawn to that. And Nintendo fell behind on that because of one fatal decision they made: the disc port and the discs that Nintendo GameCube games could actually support. So this console only supported mini discs, which basically meant that the discs were smaller and a little bit harder to develop for. The disc had less memory, less capacity, and therefore third parties migrated to Xbox and to PlayStation to publish their games instead of opting for Nintendo, which was a console which the GameCube was basically just a harder console to develop for, and the player base was just not there. Especially with the PlayStation 2, that to this date of the making of this presentation is still the most sold home video game console ever in history. This was mainly because of a few reasons. The PlayStation 1 already had made a name for Sony and the PlayStation brand itself, and this console only held that. Many exclusives and basically all of the third-party titles going to this console rather than the GameCube, and some of them also on the Xbox. But one of the things that drove the sales of this console just way higher than expected was that it has a built-in DVD player. At the time, the DVD craze was real. Everyone was trying to get their hands on a DVD player, and basically for like $50 more, or even at a point at the same price of the DVD player, you could just get the PlayStation 2 and get a built-in DVD player with a game console within it. On the other hand, Microsoft was experimenting with various different things. Their console at the time was the Xbox, was the most powerful console of the sixth generation, and they were also exploring viability with online gameplay, with Xbox Live, experimenting with different titles to see the viability of that market. This leads to a weird results in economically, in which for the first time ever Nintendo's console was last on the console wars. PlayStation smashed through every expectation, then came Xbox, and under that was Nintendo's GameCube, basically underperforming in every way possible. This takes us back to the seventh generation. Nintendo has been a little bit the evolution of the Nintendo controllers is clear. You go from this, which is an SNES controller, Nintendo's second home console, then from this to Nintendo's like invention, not invention per se, but more like a publication of the analog stick for 3D games, which evolved into the GameCube controller with the double analog sticks, which one allow for movement, one for camera, usually in most games, and show the buttons that each, the reach of your fingertips. So there is a clear path here, just rising in complexity and a clear path to be followed. But this changed completely with the Wii. So what did the Wii do? The Wii was trying to appeal to a new, completely different market using the blue ocean strategy. So what the Wii basically did and what Nintendo noticed was that in the market of video games or in the market as a whole, there was a section of the market that was untapped, that none of the industry, either Sony, Microsoft, or themselves had tried to like get themselves into. At this time with the sixth generation, there was like a war for power, for specs and all that, which appealed to the hardcore gamer. But there was this market that simply wasn't considered, and Nintendo with the Wii basically was trying to appeal to it as much as possible. This brings us to the Wii Remote. The Wii Remote and its design tried to be as similar as possible to a simple TV remote. You can see the resemblance. Instead of holding it sideways like most controllers, usually the Wii Remote is held with just one hand. Instead of going through menus with a D-pad or an analog stick, you just point at the screen and select what you want. Things like this were common to see in TV controllers. It is also not only the menus and the like accessibility in a way that helped Nintendo. In the games itself, previously to hit a baseball in a video game, you had to press a bunch of buttons, learn combinations, and just do a lot of things that casual players just didn't want to do. With the Wii Remote, to swing the baseball bat, you just swung the baseball bat. Sorry. And this helped to go to a market of not like the usual video game players, but of a whole new, just untapped market of casual players and of people who just never ever had played a video game before. They just could easily now. This takes us to the other side of the spectrum with the PlayStation 3 and the Xbox 360. The bets from Sony and Microsoft for this generation. So what they did, instead of looking for a new market like Nintendo did, was a sustained innovation. What is this? Basically, what they both did was that they took their previous console, beefed it up, gave it some new features, but in turn it was like a new version of that same console. I mean, the name says it pretty well. This is a PlayStation 2, and the next console is just the PlayStation 3, the next PlayStation, the next step in a continuous the next step in a continuous path. So it's just the more beefed up PS2. It has HDMI support, HD graphics for the first time. It has a higher processing power than PS2. It has better graphics than the PS2, and the same goes for Xbox. Just higher processing, higher HDMI support with HD graphics as well, with games pushing the graphical boundaries like never before. Meanwhile, the Wii, which was severely underpowered with its capacity or power more comparable to a PS2 or a GameCube than a PS3 or an Xbox 360, was completely outselling these new fancy HD consoles. But why? Let's take a look at the consumers and brand positioning at this time. As sorry, as said before, the PS3 and Xbox were looking for more of a gritty, realistic approach with their games and with their public. They were trying to appeal to the people who really like the PS2 and Xbox 360 and the original Xbox, sorry. And what they were trying to do was just upgrade from that and still appeal to the hardcore gamer, the gamer who cares about graphics, about specs, about power. Meanwhile, Nintendo tried to appeal to absolutely everyone, and they did this pretty seamlessly. The lower power of the Wii allowed it to have a way more accessible price, and the innovative controllers with technology that at the time had never been seen before was just a no-brainer for casual players. They could play games, they could watch even Netflix on the system, and it wasn't hard. It's just if you want to play baseball, you just swing the remote. Everyone wanted a Wii, and the sales show that. The Wii remote itself is a pretty big reason of the Wii's success. The versatility of this controller alone led to countless games that were simply just not possible before, and games that appeal to not only a specific part of the public, but to everyone. Games like Wii Sports, which used the Wii's motion controller perfectly. There was, in most of the mini games within Wii Sports, no buttons needed. It was just motion controls as a whole. And many people just don't understand how to, or just don't have the capacity to play a normal game with normal controls with their two hands. Like, look at this controller. Are you really going to tell grandma to play baseball with this? No, they just can't understand it. It's just not easy for a newcomer to understand. Meanwhile, the Wii remote, you just hold it and do it. The versatility of the Wii remote led to countless playstyles. It could be used vertically, horizontally, and later there were accessories like, for example, the Wii Wheel, which made it seem like a wheel for games like Mario Kart or basically any racer. Also, for the more hardcore gamers, the Wii didn't left them behind either. There were things, for example, like the nunchuck, which was simply just plugged in under the Wii remote, and you would get a analog stick like anything else. And also under this plug, you could also play with a Wii Classic controller, which was a more similar controller to the more traditional structure of controllers that was held at the time. So instead of just appealing to the to the market that already existed with hardcore gamers, the Wii basically expanded the video game market to heights that it had never seen before. Now video games were not just only for gamers, but video games were for everyone. This leads us to the problem statement, which I will now read. So, although the 7th generation of video game consoles has been widely studied, there is limited understanding sorry, of how different innovation strategies by Nintendo, Sony, and Microsoft simultaneously shaped both market performance and long-term brand positioning. Most of the existing research focuses on either individual companies, mainly Nintendo, or on abstract economic models, rather than providing an integrated comparative analysis across all three competitors within the same generation. Which leads us to the research gap, which was a little bit explained on the problem statement, but I will go further into it right now. So, as I said before, most of the research on the 7th generation has a clear gap on information and on what actually happened. Most studies mostly just analyze Nintendo and basically ignore PlayStation and Sony as a whole. We still have to understand it as as a competition within the 3-4A market. After Nintendo's success with the Wii, both PlayStation and Sony tried to replicate it, with Sony making motion controls for its console and Xbox taking a gamble with the Kinect. These parts of history of the 7th generation are widely ignored by the existing sources, and are something I want to check out and delve deeper into to get just an understanding of what every decision made by the three companies entailed for their brand positioning and, well, for the sales and the results on the specific generation. Which leads us to the research question, which I will now read. So the research question states, how did the different innovation strategies of Nintendo, Sony, and Microsoft during the 7th generation of consoles, 2005 to 2013, influence their market performance and long-term brand positioning in the video game industry? Oh, sorry. So this leads us to the research method. Now, for the research method, it was done in a qualitative documentary analysis and a comparative marketing framework. So I basically took academic articles, financial reports, press publications, advertising materials, and analyzed them within the lens of marketing strategies, consumer impact, and the economic results that they sparked. The methodology followed a simple 3-step method. Step 1 is source classifications, just taking every source that I've gathered and putting them in one of 3 categories, which is advertising, consumers, well, advertising, what the specific brand was doing at the time, how they were advertising to the public, and all that. Consumers, how the consumers were responding to this, what they were thinking, how the sales were, and of course the economic data that shows us the big picture on what happened at the end of the day, with advertising consumers giving us the more specific data on why did that happen. Now, step 2 goes to applying the frameworks. This is very divided on Nintendo with their Blue Ocean strategy, just going for a completely brand new market, and Sony and Microsoft with their sustained investigation, the evolution of a winner formula that has worked for a lot of years of just basically making each console better graphically and power wise, without changing the fundamental things that make it a video game console. And step 3, just a comparative analysis, just comparing patterns, outcomes, and this way we can connect each strategy to a set performance. This brings us to some of the key studies, but the main one I want to focus on is the CSAC and Barsh study on the Blue Ocean strategy. This is a ginormous article that goes into the Blue Ocean strategy as a whole, with a lot of examples, one of them being their chapter on the Blue Ocean strategy with the Wii, which as said before, created a new market of casual players, just expanding what a video game could be and expanding how the market works, and just completely changing video game history as a whole. Now video games are not for just gamers, but video games are for the whole world. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you so much for your attention. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. This is